When the franchise says, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it's basically the storytellers saying that this is a modern fantasy, replacing once upon a time in a kingdom far, far away with a more science fiction presentation. So even though it is set in the future, at least from the perspective of 20th century America, it is set in a fanciful past. And for all of you Family Guy fans, that explains why it's set in the past but is yet somehow in the future.
Greetings and welcome to Checkpoint Gaming. With this series, we will be going over how to play the game Star Wars Outer Rim. With Star Wars Outer Rim, the players take on the role of a bounty hunter, smuggler, mercenary, or other piece of scum and villainy. At least that's how they're seen by a certain Jedi, who wish to leave their mark upon the galaxy by one means or another. Since not all fans of the franchise are interested in stories surrounding the principles of democracy, the good intentions of the Jedi, the ideals that the Republic represented, or the values that the Rebellion are fighting for, they have fun playing as the villain with some wishing to explore this element of the franchise. So these players will make their way to the Outer Rim upon their personal ship, where they will hire characters to join their crew, as well as to work either for or against one of the game's 4 factions: the Rebels, the Empire, the Hutts, and/or the crime syndicates of various stripes. Regarding the crime syndicates, although there are a number of them found across the galaxy with each one operating as its own organization, they're all a part of the same criminal communication network, which allows them to share information with each other. Because of this, they all share the same reputation token, which causes the player to possess standing, and thus reputation as a whole, amongst this syndicate network instead of any given organization. So the publishers are using the anagram KISS, or Keep It Simple Stupid. With the objective of the game, it is for the players to gain the most amount of fame in order to become a living legend, with this fame representing stories surrounding the actions and deeds of the player that have spread across the galaxy, accompanied by how much the other mercenaries fear, idolize, and even hate the player. The first player who gains the agreed upon amount of fame, or even surpassing that amount, will win the game. With the game components for both the core game and unfinished business, they consist of the following elements: 2 rule books, 12 ship sheets, 4 player boards that come with 4 plastic fame markers, 16 character standees with an equal number of plastic stands, 6 map tiles, and 4 map end caps. Regarding the end caps, they are divided into 2 sets that consists of generic end caps and core worlds end caps, where the generic end caps represent dead ends of the board, while the core worlds end caps represent a shortcut across the core worlds. In addition to this, the core worlds end caps allow the players to not only visit the core worlds, but to also try and travel through the core worlds region in order to reach the other end of the galaxy. To accomplish this, the player will have to encounter one of the 2 core world spaces which are found on their own map end cap, with each space being treated as a planet space for all game mechanic purposes. So players are able to move to these spaces, perform market actions, and to perform encounters there. With the tokens, they consist of the following: 16 reputation tokens, which are divided into 4 factions, 33 contact tokens that represent characters found within the Star Wars franchise, 16 patrol tokens with 4 per faction, 44 damage tokens, 24 gold tokens, 4 debt tokens, and 64 credit tokens that are divided by value into 1,000, 5,000, and 10,000 credit tokens. With the cards, they consist of the following: 161 encounter cards that are divided by type, 115 market cards, 105 databank cards, 16 character cards, 8 reference cards, and 31 AI cards. It is worth noting that all cards from the Unfinished Business expansion possess the Unfinished Business icon upon them as a means of distinguishing them from the base game. So if the Unfinished Business expansion is being used, incorporate the character cards, encounter cards, market cards, and databank cards into their respective decks, replacing the number 10 encounter card from the base game with the number 10 encounter card from the expansion. So even though there are 161 total encounter cards, only 160 encounter cards are able to be in play in any given game. In regards to the databank deck, keep it in numerical order and within easy reach of the banker. With the reference cards, if playing with Unfinished Business, each player is to receive 1, which will replace the player turn side of the base game reference card. With that said, the players can still find the Ways to Gain Fame and Skill Test sections found upon the back of the base game reference card useful. With the remaining items, they consist of 9 dice and 8 ambition sheets. It is worth noting that with the dice, damage tokens, credit tokens, and gold tokens, they are considered to be unlimited. So even though any given set will have a limited amount of each, if a game ever runs out of any of these given tokens, then a substitute can be used instead. and if a player will have to roll more dice than what is available, then said player is to record their initial roll, followed by re-rolling the necessary dice. From there, combine the roll results with the dice. They're octahedron in shape and are used to resolve combat, tests, and special abilities. Each side of any given die consists of the following results. A hit is found upon 3 sides, a crit is found upon 1 side, a focus is found upon 2 sides, and a blank is found upon 2 sides. Since a crit doesn't count as a hit for purposes of game effects, if an ability refers to a hit, it's not in reference to that of a crit. Regarding abilities, they refer to die results that use the icons. References to that of a blank result will use the word blank. When it comes to all of the other components, they are limited in nature and will only consist of what comes with the game. So if a player has to draw cards from a given deck that no longer has enough cards found within it, then the player will have to draw as many cards as they can, with a possibility of drawing no cards. When it comes to that of ships, each player is to start with a starter ship, which comes with a hyperdrive value, which determines how many spaces the player is able to move during the planning step. A ship combat value that determines how many dice the player is to roll during ship combat, and a hull value that determines how much damage the ship is able to withstand before the player is determined to be defeated. Each ship also possesses slots with one asset of the type that matches the name of the given slot being able to be placed into said slot. Other than the starter ships, each ship comes with a cost which indicates how many credits are needed in order to buy said ship, as well as how much said ship is worth when it comes to bartering. And with the purchasing of a new ship, it is done through the ship market deck, with the player's current ship being used to purchase a new ship, even if said ship has a 0 credit cost. So the player's old ship will have to be bartered when purchasing a new ship, but the player will be unable to use their ship to barter for other assets, only for the purchasing of a new ship. Otherwise, the player will be without a ship, and that'll prevent them from playing the game. The player will also be able to barter when resolving the used ship for sale card from the ship market deck, with said player having to barter their current ship. When buying a new ship, said ship card will have to be removed from the game, followed by the player's current ship sheet being replaced with the corresponding ship sheet they just purchased. When purchasing the new ship, all damage found upon the player's previous ship is to be removed and the new ship possessing no damage. With the old ship, it is to be returned to the supply of unpurchased ship sheets. When a ship possesses a matching market card, then said card is not to be returned to the market deck. With the unused ship sheets, they're to be kept in a pile that is found off to one side, out of the way of play, and this represents the unused ships, with the players being able to acquire them during gameplay. When it comes to that of slots, there are spaces found upon the character card and ship sheets that are able to hold assets the player is able to obtain during gameplay. Some of these slots have X2 printed on them, which comes with 2 of the given slots, which allows the player to possess 2 assets of the specified type. There are also some slots that come with 2 names, such as cargo or mod. With these slots, they are able to hold a single asset that matches one of the names found for that given slot. There are also some abilities that allow the player to possess multiple assets within a given slot. If a player is able to place multiple assets into a single slot, then they should place the second asset above that of the first, so that the first asset covers up the unnecessary part of the second asset. If a player purchases a ship that doesn't have enough slots for all of the assets they possess, then the player will have to discard assets of their choice until each asset has been assigned to an appropriate slot or it has been discarded. Players are also able to rearrange assets within the given slots found on the player board and ship sheet whenever they like. But with that said, the assets will have to be placed into a valid slot when performing this rearrangement. And if the player loses a slot, or their slot configuration changes when they obtain a new ship, the player may need to engage in asset rearrangement, discarding assets as needed. Regarding the ship sheet pile of unpurchased ships, the player will be allowed to look through them at any time. Found on each ship sheet that is able to be obtained from the market, it comes with a ship goal printed upon it with any progress that the player has made towards the completing of a given ship goal. Before obtaining said ship will not count towards completion of said ship's goal unless the player is still in the process of completing the necessary conditions. When it comes to that of assets, they include bounties, cargo, crew, gear, mods, and jobs. Once obtained, the player is to place it into an empty slot found upon either their player board or ship sheet that matches the asset type. When found upon an encounter card, cargo, gear, and mods are printed upside down since they're to be placed upon the top of the player board and ship sheet. Regarding rotating assets, they're cards that possess assets upon both ends with the starting asset icon found upon the upper left-hand corner of said card, indicating the starting asset. When buying or otherwise obtaining a rotating asset from the market, the player is to pay the cost of the starting asset, followed by placing it within the appropriate slot, with the starting asset being visible. When it comes to that of rotating a rotatable asset, it occurs when the rotate this card action is initiated with said card being spun 180 degrees so that the other asset is found right side up while remaining within its assigned slot. If obtained from another player, then the rotating asset is to retain its orientation when transferred to the new player. And if it gets discarded, then the rotated card is to be returned to its appropriate deck, possessing the same orientation as all of the other cards found in said deck. However, if a player obtains an asset but doesn't have an empty slot for said asset, then said player is to either discard one of the cards they currently possess as a means of freeing up the appropriate slot or the asset that they just obtained. And the discarding of an asset can only occur when an ability or rule allows it or after obtaining another asset and an empty slot is needed. When it comes to that of setting up the game, the following steps are to be used. But if playing a single-player game, then use the rules found in Episode 3. First, the map will need to be constructed using the game's map tiles and end caps that possess selected planets upon them. With the tile arrangement, going from left to right, the base game will have the players set up the tiles in the following order: Cantonica, Ord, Mantell tile; Lothal, Mon Calamari tile; Kessel tile; Tatooine, Nal, Huda tile; Ryloth, Naboo tile; then the Ring of Kafrene, Takodana tile. And if playing unfinished business, replace the generic end caps with the core world's end caps with the Rebel Syndicate end cap connected to the Cantonica Ord Mantell tile, while having the Empire Hut end cap connected to the Ring of Kafrene Takodana tile. But if all players agree to the situation, the following steps are to be performed for a random map. Start off turning all 6 map tiles face down and randomizing them in a stack, followed by flipping over the tip tile. And if playing unfinished business, attach it to the Rebel Syndicate Patrol end cap. From there, draw a map tile, one at a time, and connect it to the previously drawn tile with the Hut Imperial Patrol end cap being attached to the last tile that is placed. But if playing the base game, then just use the base end caps at both ends of this map. And though this might not be as tightly balanced as the default map, some players prefer to use this option due to it providing a new experience to the game. We also feel like the players can just grab the tiles at random and place them in any order they wish, since the layout of the space lanes will always match up, regardless of tile arrangement. Second, sort the patrol tokens by level, as indicated by the white dots found upon their backs, ranging from 1 to 4, with 1 on top and 4 on the bottom, and create 4 face-down stacks, 1 for each faction, with each of these stacks placed onto the end cap space that matches their respective faction icon. From there, place each level 1 token face-up upon the nav point space that is adjacent to their given end cap space that matches their given faction icon. But if playing unfinished business, the 2 patrols will share a space upon the core world's end cap. So the Rebel and Syndicate patrols start off upon the same nav point of the Spinward core end cap, while having the Hut and Imperial patrols starting off upon the same nav point of the trailing core end cap. With the spawning of new patrols, they're to be done upon these respective spaces. While we're talking about sharing spaces, any number of patrol tokens are able to exist within a single space. Third, gather up all of the contact tokens, place them face down, and mix them together. Once completed, place 1 contact token face down on each contact space, ensuring that the color and number of pips found on the space match those found upon the token. And if playing unfinished business, include the orange contact tokens in this randomization process, followed by placing them face down upon each planet space, excluding the core world spaces. Fourth, separate the credit, damage, and gold tokens into respective piles and place them within easy reach of the player who is acting as the banker. Fifth, each player is to roll 6 dice, followed by counting the number of hit and crit results they obtained, with the player that rolled the most hit and crit results being the first player. But if there is a tie for first, then said players will engage in a roll-off. From there, starting with the first player and proceeding in a clockwise direction, assuming people within the Star Wars universe are familiar with a clock face, each player is to choose a character and receive the following components: 1 character card that matches the selected character with the personal goal side face-up, 1 character standee that matches their chosen character, 1 player board with a plastic fame marker placed into the 0 space of the fame track, 1 reputation token for each faction found upon the player board and covering that given faction's icon, 1 starter ship sheet with the desired side facing up, 1 reference card, and credit tokens based upon player turn order. With each character that is found within the game, they start off with an ability found upon their given character card, along with a personal goal that comes with how it is to be completed. When this goal is completed, the player is to obtain 1 fame along with their character card being flipped, which will reveal a second unique ability the player can use. With a character's skills, they are found at the bottom of their respective card, indicate what they're proficient in, and they're used for the performance of tests. Each character and crew member also come with at least 1 skill found upon their card, though 2 or more can be listed as well. With skills, the player can never lose those that come with their given character card. But with that said, they can gain or lose skills based upon them obtaining or losing crew members. With the skills that come with a given crew member, the player obtains them once they recruit said crew member. But if the player discards a crew member, then they're to lose their associated skills. When an ability requires a player to possess a given skill, it is in reference to any skill that is found upon either character or crew card. If an ability gives a player a skill, then said skill is temporary and will only last for the length of the skill's effect, and they can give themselves a skill that they already possess, which will make the respective skill test easier to complete. And with the skills that the player has access to, they count towards determining if a player is to perform an unskilled, skilled, or highly skilled skill test, something we'll discuss in the following episode. When it comes to a character's stats, they consist of a ground attack value and a health value, where the ground attack value determines how many dice the player will roll when it comes to that of ground combat, and the health value represents how much damage the character can withstand before being defeated. Regarding the remaining health of a character, it represents said character's health minus the damage they have sustained. Found upon the front of every character card are setup instructions, which is located upon the bottom of the ability box, which includes obtaining a databank card that they begin the game with, along with adjusting their character's reputation within the specified space if instructed to do so. The databank card also indicates what planet the player starts on at the beginning of the game, with the player's character standee being placed upon said planet. It is also preferable that this is done simultaneously amongst the players. If the given databank card the player obtains is classified as cargo, then place it above the ship sheet in the cargo slot. Otherwise, it is to be placed below their player board in one of the job slots if they start off with a job, or one of the bounty slots if they start off with a bounty. The player is to obtain the respective job or bounty card from their respective deck if called to do so. Starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, the players are to receive 4,000 credits, 6,000 credits, 8,000 credits, and 10,000 credits. If playing with the optional favors rules, then each player is to take a debt token that will match their given player board. In addition to this, if using the optional ambitions rules, this initial credit distribution is to be skipped. With credits, which are formally known as galactic credits, they're the standardized currency of the Galactic Empire. In-game, credits are denoted by the credit symbol, and they are represented by the credit tokens. With the credits that a player possesses, they're to be kept upon the player's given board. With the spending of credits, the player is to return the required amount to the bank and taking back any change when needed. And with the obtaining of credits, it is obtained from the bank equal to the needed amount. With the loss of credits, player is to just return the respective value back to the bank. Players also have the option of making change through the bank at any time by exchanging the credits they have with the bank in order to obtain a total value that is of equal worth. If an ability allows a player to purchase a card at a discount, then it will reduce the cost of said card by the listed amount. And if an ability allows a player to purchase a card for free, then said player is to obtain said card without the spending of any credits. Otherwise, it wouldn't be free now, would it? It is also possible for players to trade credits with the current player at any time during play. Since trades don't have to be equal, it allows players to trade any amount of credits they wish and to receive a lesser value or none in return. With any trade that isn't immediate and isn't fulfilled completely are considered to be non-binding. So if a player does something like trading credits to another player with the promise of it being reciprocated at some point in the future, the other player is able to freely break it without suffering repercussions, at least from the game mechanics perspective. And when it comes to that of the current player, it is the player who is currently performing their given turn, where they are resolving their planning, action, or encounter step. And sixth, the card decks are to be set up as follows. Start off by separating the market cards into 6 decks in accordance with their card backs, followed by shuffling each deck and placing them face down in a row found below the map. From there, reveal the top card of each deck and place it face up atop of its respective deck. Follow this up by separating the encounter cards into 7 decks, 8 if playing with the core worlds, organized by card back, followed by shuffling each of these decks and placing them face down next to the map itself, near to their corresponding planet, nav point, or end cap. Although most decks are connected to a given map section and its given pair of planets, there is one deck that corresponds to all of the nav points. The back of each encounter card possesses the name of the space for which it is connected. On top of this, the card backs also list the ability types that are prominent within said deck. The information that is found on the front of each encounter card is divided into sections. With the planet encounters, they're divided into a section for each planet, or for the maelstrom when appropriate, with the nav point encounter cards being divided depending upon if there is a patrol in said nav point or not. When dealing with the core worlds encounter cards, they are divided into core worlds and across the core. It is also possible for each section to be subdivided based upon the reputation a player has with a particular faction. With the resolving of an encounter card, a player is only able to resolve a single section or subsection that applies to their given game state at the time that the given encounter card was drawn. With some encounter cards, they are in possession of assets, with one or more of these sections specifying how these assets are to be obtained. With these assets, they don't possess a cost, and they are unable to be used during bartering. With the market decks, they consist of 6 groups that are divided into the bounty, cargo, gear, and mod, job, luxury, and ship decks that come with their own icons printed upon their back, and they consist of a variety of different cards. And when an ability refers to a given asset type, then it refers to said asset type, regardless of which deck it comes from. With the bounty deck, although it consists primarily of bounties, it can also include some jobs that will allow the players to attack each other. With the cargo deck, it mostly consists of cargo that is able to be delivered for the obtaining of credits and the occasional fame. With the gear and mod deck, it consists of both gear and mods that are used to improve the player's combat values, health, hull, or hyperdrive. With the job deck, it consists mostly of jobs along with some crew that is able to help with the performance of skill tests. With the luxury deck, it consists of cargo, crew, gear, jobs, and mods that will range from 10,000 to 20,000 credits to purchase and will always provide the player a way of gaining fame. And with ship deck, it consists of ships that the player is able to obtain. With all of that said, we felt like focusing upon gears and mods a bit further. Both asset types will give the players additional abilities, and they are typically obtained from the gear and mod market deck. Once obtained, said card is to be placed into their respective slot that is connected with the player's board or ship sheet. But if said slot isn't empty, then the player will be able to discard the asset that currently occupies said slot in order to accommodate the new asset card. And if the player is performing a market action, they can barter the card they wish to get rid of in order to obtain a new asset card. With the purchasing of a market card, it can be from any market deck. And whenever the face-up card of a given market deck has been bought, gained, discarded, or shuffled back into its respective deck, then the player will have to reveal the top card from the affected market deck, with this revealed card being placed face-up atop of said deck. In regards to the shuffling of one of the market decks, regardless of the triggering action, the player is not to reveal the top card until they finish shuffling said deck. So shuffle first, then reveal. And when an effect has the player either draw, reveal, or search for a given number of cards found within a market deck, the face-up card counts as one of these given cards. When it comes to that of the newly revealed card, if it possesses a patrol movement icon upon it, then the player will have to move said patrol marker. It is worth noting that the patrol icon is only moved using these icons after buying or otherwise obtaining a card from the deck, not after discarding a card. So discarding a market card will have no effect upon patrol movement. On top of this, the newly revealed card possesses a patrol movement icon upon it, then the patrol is not to be moved. With each patrol movement icon, it possesses a faction and distance indicators. The faction indicator is in relation to which faction's patrol is to be moved, with the distance indicating how many spaces the patrol is to move towards the given player. It is worth noting that there are some market cards that have assets listed on both ends of the card, and they possess an arrow found in the upper left-hand corner of one of these listed assets, which indicates the starting asset for said card. If a player either buys or otherwise obtains one of these cards from the market, then they're to pay the starting asset cost, followed by placing said card into a slot with the starting asset visible, with the other asset being tucked under the ship sheet or player board. And when obtaining an asset in general, it's encouraged that it is partially placed under the player board or ship sheet. With abilities that are found on either the top or bottom of the card, it can instruct the player to rotate said card, which is done by turning the card 180 degrees so that the other listed asset is found right side up, while also remaining in the slot it is occupying. If a player gains one of these rotated assets from another player, then said card is to retain its orientation when it gets transferred to its new owner. If a rotated asset gets discarded, then it is to be returned to its respective deck and oriented in the same way as the other cards found within the respective deck. With cards from the ship market deck, typically consist of new ships, with the buying of a ship seeing the player claim its ship sheet from the supply of unused ships. The player is to also remove the respective ship market card from the game. From there, the player's current ship sheet is returned to the supply with a new ship sheet that corresponds to the new ship taking its place with its ship goal side found face up. When it comes to damage, remove all of it from the player's old ship with all of its associated assets being kept and placed into the appropriate slots upon the player's new ship. But if the new ship doesn't have enough slots found upon it to hold all of the player's current assets, then the player will have to discard assets of their choice until they possess the proper amount of assets within the proper slots. In situations where players are to trade ship sheets with another player, it will see the ship sheet remain upon its current side with all of its damage remaining accompanied by the goal tokens remaining upon each ship sheet. When it comes to that of any assets that are found tucked under the ship sheet, they are to remain with their given owner and are not to be traded with the ships. With the buying of a card, the player can discard any of their cargo, gear, or mods in order to reduce the cost by the cost of the discarded cards, with the discarded cards being placed at the bottom of their respective market decks. With the buying of a ship, the player will always barter their current ship and use its cost as a discount towards the purchasing of the new ship. And since a player can't gain credits back from bartering, they can only reduce the cost to a minimum of 0 credits. When buying a card from any of the market decks, a player will be able to engage in bartering through the use of their current assets in order to reduce the cost of a card that they wish to obtain. This is done by the player discarding one or more of their given assets, with the total cost of the discarded cards counting towards the purchasing of a new asset. Since some assets don't come with a cost, they are unable to be used during the bartering process. Bounties, crew, and jobs also can't be used for bartering purposes. Players can engage in bartering whenever purchasing a card from a market deck, regardless of if it's part of their market action or some other in-game effect. But bartering can't be done in order to pay for other effects, such as obtaining an asset found upon an encounter card. And when engaging in bartering, said player will be unable to gain change with assets that are worth more credits than the card that is being purchased. So it might be a good idea for the player to have some extra credits found in their possession when engaging in bartering. It is worth noting that there are some abilities that specifically allow players to engage in bartering when spending credits in order to pay for a given game effect. The exception has to do with not buying something from the market deck, which follows all of the other normal rules that are connected with bartering. There are also some key concepts that we'd like to look at, which consists of the databank cards, reputation, crew, nearest, and opponent. When it comes to the databank cards, they constitute a deck of numbered cards that is to remain in sequential order. And it is worth noting that with the databank cards from Unfinished Business, they function just like the databank cards from the base game and are to be added to the respective deck in numerical order. At certain points during the game, when instructed to do so, the players will need to retrieve a specific numbered card from this given deck, so leaving them in sequence makes them easy to find. To find a given card, simply look through the deck, looking at the card back, until finding the number one is looking for. From there, draw it from the deck, read it aloud, and then resolve it. Found upon the back of each databank card is a number of pips that act as indicators on how many cards possess the same databank number. But with that said, some of these additional databank cards will make these pips inaccurate. With these inaccurate cards, they apply to cards 42 through 53, 91, and 92, along with the additional expansion cards the databank cards receive from Unfinished Business. So when organizing the databank cards, duplicate numbers should be randomized and placed into the deck together. And when a duplicate card is drawn, then it's to be done at random. These pip inaccuracies are also to be dealt with in the following manner. With the jobs, there are 2 resolution cards, even though some of these databank cards will only possess a single pip upon them. When a job card instructs a player to resolve a specific databank card, and there are 2 of said cards, then shuffle them and randomly draw one of them. The databank cards possess a variety of cards that will instruct the player to resolve a given effect, perform a specific skill test, or to obtain an asset. When a player has discarded a databank card, said card is to be returned to the deck in the proper sequence. But if there are multiple copies of the same card number, then said card is to be shuffled back into the deck amongst the other cards that are of the same number. To help with card organization, not every number is represented within the databank deck. When it comes to that of reputation, it is based upon the decisions that a player makes, which influences how the factions will think of said player, and it is marked upon their player board using the respective reputation token in the given faction reputation track. Each faction is associated with a single reputation token, and each token can only occupy one of 3 spaces upon the reputation track, that of positive, neutral, and negative. With that of positive reputation, the respective token is found on the top space of its given track, thus representing the faction seeing said player as a valuable ally. Any effects that are associated with encounter cards and patrols can give the player a reward for this. If a player gains reputation, then they're to move their given reputation marker 1 space up towards the positive reputation end of the track. And if a player already has their reputation marker in the positive reputation space and they gain additional reputation for said faction, then they are unable to gain any more reputation. With that of neutral reputation, the respective token is found on the middle space of its given track, is marked with the faction's icon to help differentiate each faction reputation track before the faction reputation token is placed onto said track, and it represents the faction not having any strong feelings regarding the player, either positive or negative. Because of this, said player will not gain any benefits or receive any penalties from that given faction. And with that of negative reputation, the respective token is found on the bottom space of its given track, thus representing the faction seeing said player as an enemy and threat to their interests. Any effects that are associated with encounter cards and patrols can punish the player. If a player loses reputation, then they're to move their given reputation marker 1 space down towards the negative reputation end of the track. And if a player already has their reputation marker in the negative reputation space, and they lose additional reputation for said faction, then they are unable to lose any more reputation. With a number of effects found in the game, they can cause the player to either gain or lose reputation with a given faction. The gaining of reputation will see the respective faction token move up 1 space towards the positive space, while the losing of reputation will see the respective faction token move down 1 space towards the negative space. But if a player would gain or lose reputation with a given faction, and they already have positive or negative reputation with said faction, then this gain or loss of reputation will have no effect. And when a player is treated as having a reputation level other than what they actually possess, then said player is to ignore any reputation that is to be gained or lost with the affiliated faction. There is also the possibility of a player being instructed to set a given faction's reputation marker at a given reputation level, causing them to move said marker to said level, regardless of where it was beforehand. A player's reputation with a given faction can also affect what part of an encounter card a player is to resolve, being able to move past their patrol when moving upon the map, or are forced to encounter the faction's given patrol when amongst the outer rim. And if a player is to be treated as if they possess a reputation level that is different than what they actually have, then the player is to ignore any reputation that they're to either gain or lose with said faction. With that of crew, they come with additional skills and abilities that can help out the player, and they're typically obtained through encountering contact tokens. With the obtaining of crew, the player is to place said crew member into an empty crew slot found upon their ship sheet, assuming that their ship possesses room for crew. Players are also able to discard an existing crew member in order to create space in the crew slot for the acquisition of a new crew member. Hopefully, if they do this, the player does this for a better crew member. When a player obtains a crew member, they are able to choose to discard said card instead of taking on said crew member. With the discarding of a crew asset from the player's ship sheet, said crew member is to be returned to its respective deck. And if the crew member comes with a contact token, said contact token is to be placed, face up, upon a planet that possesses an empty contact token space that is found closest to the player, ignoring the contact class. And when it comes to the location of a player's crew member, they're treated as being found within the same space as the player themselves. If multiple players are found within the same space, the crew members of each player is also found within this given space. When it comes to that of nearest, it refers to a player, space, or component that is found the fewest number of spaces away from another player, space, or component, with the nearest of these always being measured by the shortest distance to the given space. There are also some abilities or in-game effects that rely upon nearest in order for it to target a player, space, or component. If there are multiple players, spaces, or components that are tied for being the nearest to one of the aforementioned components, then the current player is to determine which of the tied players, spaces, or components are to be affected by the given ability. And if there is a patrol, planet, or player that is found in a player space, then that counts as the nearest patrol, planet, or player to said player respectively. But when determining who the nearest player is, said player doesn't count themselves. And when it comes to that of determining the nearest player, space, or component, the core worlds are not used in this determination. When it comes to that of the placement of contact tokens upon the nearest planet, and there are multiple planets available for the player to choose from, then the player will choose which one they wish to put the contact token upon. If a planet itself is without a contact token, it is considered to be an empty contact token space, including core world spaces. And with opponent, it refers to any entity that is engaging in combat against a player. This counts as a contact, another player, or an enemy found upon a given card. So with that said, that is what you need to know about how to go about setting up the game Star Wars Outer Rim. With that taken care of, we can start talking about game mechanics.
If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode, and happy gaming.